Imagine discovering that almost every important decision you've ever made wasn't really yours. The strange part isn't that fear exists. It's that it rarely sounds like fear. It sounds like reason. It sounds like responsibility. It sounds like you. We're going to examine one of the most unsettling ideas ever explored about the human mind. The invisible prison nobody realizes they are living in. What if the biggest enemy in your life isn't another person, isn't your job, isn't the economy? What if it's a voice that sounds exactly like your own? Every morning it tells you to wait, to play it safe, to stop dreaming, to settle. And the terrifying part, most people never realize that voice was never truly theirs. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why millions of people spend their entire lives trapped inside an invisible prison, without ever seeing the bars. Struggle. Picture this. Your alarm rings. You grab your phone. 5 minutes become 30. You promise yourself today will be different. You'll finally start the business. Go to the gym. Write the book. Make the call. Have the difficult conversation. But somehow, the day disappears again. You tell yourself you're lazy, undisciplined, unlucky. But what if that's the wrong diagnosis? What if someone or something is quietly steering your choices without your permission? And here's the unsettling question. If you're the one making every decision, why do you keep making decisions you regret? Pause. That's the mystery. The question's, why do intelligent people willingly settle for lives they don't love? Why does fear feel safer than possibility? Why do we repeat habits that make us miserable? And why do some people break free, while others remain trapped forever? Don't answer yet, because the answers aren't obvious. They're psychological. The story behind the idea. Imagine spending decades studying the world's most successful people. Business owners, inventors, leaders, creators. You notice something strange. They don't necessarily have better opportunities. They don't have fewer problems. But they seem immune to a kind of mental gravity that keeps everyone else stuck. That observation sparked one of the boldest thought experiments ever written. Instead of treating fear like an emotion, what if you treated it like a manipulator? What if procrastination, self-doubt, indecision weren't random at all? What if they were symptoms of something deeper? Not a monster hiding under the bed, but invisible patterns hiding inside the mind. Book preview. This isn't really a story about good versus evil. It's about awareness versus unconsciousness. It's about what happens when you stop accepting every thought as truth. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Let's imagine fear as a salesman, not loud, not dramatic, calm, reasonable, convincing. It never tells you to ruin your life overnight. It simply whispers, tomorrow, later. You're not ready. Someone else can do it better. Small sentences, massive consequences. The first trap. Here's how the prison gets built. Not with chains, with repetition. You avoid one uncomfortable conversation. Nothing happens. You avoid another. Still nothing. Soon, avoidance becomes identity. I'm just not confident. No. Confidence didn't disappear. It was never given a chance to grow. Because confidence isn't built before action. It's built because of action. That's where most people get stuck. They wait to feel brave before doing brave things. Life works in reverse. Modern life, think about social media. Every swipe teaches your brain something. Stay distracted. Stay entertained. Stay comfortable. Notice how rarely you're encouraged to sit quietly with difficult thoughts. Silence has become uncomfortable because silence forces us to meet ourselves. And many people would rather scroll endlessly than ask, what do I actually want? Micro story. Imagine a man standing outside a gym. Every day he parks, looks through the window, then drives home. He tells himself he'll start Monday. Months pass. One day he finally walks inside. Nothing magical happens. No dramatic soundtrack. He exercises for 20 minutes, leaves. Returns the next day. 6 months later. Everyone says, you're so disciplined. They didn't witness the real victory. The hardest step wasn't lifting weights. It was walking through the door despite fear. The real battle fear rarely screams. It negotiates. It sounds practical. You need more research. Wait until the timing is perfect. Play it safe. Sometimes those thoughts are wise, often they're disguises. That's why awareness matters. Every decision deserves one question. Am I choosing this? Or is fear choosing it for me? Pause. That single question can change an entire life. Identity. Here's something fascinating. People rarely rise above the identity they've accepted. Someone says, I'm shy. I'm bad with money. I'm unlucky. Those aren't observations anymore. They're instructions. Your brain starts collecting evidence. Soon, your identity becomes self-fulfilling. So maybe the question isn't, how do I become successful? Maybe it's, who am I becoming every time I repeat this story about myself? The hidden cost. Most people think fear steals opportunities. It does. But that's not its greatest theft. It steals imagination. You stop dreaming. Stop experimenting. Stop believing your future can surprise you. You become predictable, comfortable, invisible. Not because life demanded it. Because fear convinced you that survival was enough. Call back. Remember the invisible prison we talked about. Here are the bars: habit, excuses, conformity, waiting. They are invisible because society applauds them. Nobody criticizes someone for playing it safe. Until decades later, when regret quietly arrives. The shift. Freedom doesn't begin when circumstances improve. It begins when awareness improves. You notice the voice. You question it. You act anyway. Tiny acts, repeated daily. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary. Not through giant leaps, but through thousands of moments where fear loses the argument. Why this matters: this isn't about becoming fearless. Fear never disappears completely. The goal is different. To stop allowing fear to become the author of your life. Because one day, everyone asks the same question. What if I had tried? The tragedy isn't failure. It's never discovering who you could have become. So, why do people repeat the same mistakes? Because unconscious patterns feel familiar. Why do some people change? Because they become aware before they become confident. And what really controls our decisions? Often, the stories we've never questioned. The invisible prison isn't locked. The door has been open the entire time. Most people simply never realize they're standing inside. If today's idea challenged the way you think, remember this: the greatest battles are almost never fought against the outside world. They're fought inside the conversations nobody else can hear. And once you learn to question those conversations, you begin writing a completely different life. Because the most dangerous prison was never made of walls. It was made of beliefs. This is the hidden psychology of the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. You are to find out there's an invisible prison, the discovery how it controls you, and the liberation how you escape. The invisible enemy that's been running your life. Imagine waking up one day only to discover that almost every important decision you've ever made wasn't really yours. The career you chose, the dreams you abandoned, the risks you never took, the conversations you avoided. What if an invisible force had been quietly steering your life all along? Not with violence, not with threats, but with something far more powerful, fear. And the frightening part, it never introduces itself as fear. It sounds like common sense. It sounds like responsibility. It sounds like your own voice. Stay with me, because before this video ends, you may never trust your inner dialogue the same way again. The life most people don't question. Picture a typical Monday morning. The alarm rings. You hit snooze. Not because you're tired, because reality feels heavier than sleep. You reach for your phone. One notification becomes 10. 10 becomes 50. Before your feet even touch the floor, someone else has already decided what you'll think about today. News, algorithms, opinions, outrage, comparison. By breakfast, your mind isn't your own anymore. And yet this feels normal. That's what makes it dangerous. Here's the strange thing. Most people believe they're making free choices. But are they? Or are they simply reacting to invisible programming they've absorbed for years? The first question, have you ever noticed how quickly you talk yourself out of something exciting? You get an idea. Start a business. Write a book. Move somewhere new. Learn a skill. For a brief moment, the future feels limitless. Then another voice appears. What if it fails? What will people think? Maybe next year. It's probably too late. Interesting. The dream takes seconds to appear. The excuses arrive even faster. Why? Who taught your mind to protect comfort more fiercely than possibility? Don't answer yet, because the answer changes everything. A story you've already lived. Imagine a child learning to walk. They fall again, hundreds of times. Nobody calls them a failure. Nobody tells them walking isn't for them. Nobody says, maybe you're just not the walking type. Everyone expects failure, because failure is part of learning. Now fast forward 20 years. An adult wants to start something new. One mistake, and suddenly they think, I guess this just isn't who I am. What changed? The body? No, the mind. Somewhere along the way, failure stopped being feedback. It became identity. And that single shift quietly shapes millions of lives. The most dangerous habit, fear, isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. It says, just wait until you're more prepared. Sounds reasonable. Do a little more research. Also reasonable. Maybe after the holidays. Still reasonable. That's why fear is so effective. It doesn't ask you to quit. It asks you to postpone forever. Life isn't usually destroyed by one catastrophic decision. It's slowly surrendered through thousands of tiny delays. One tomorrow at a time. The invisible trade. Here's a question almost nobody asks. What exactly are you buying every time you choose comfort over courage? Because every choice has a price. Avoid an awkward conversation and you buy temporary relief. But you also buy future regret. Avoid chasing your dream, and you buy certainty. But you sell possibility. Avoid taking a chance, and you purchase safety. At the cost of growth. Without realizing it, many people spend decades making these invisible trades. Until one day they look back and discover they exchanged an extraordinary life for an ordinary sense of security. Pattern break. Let's stop for a second. Right now, think about one decision you've been delaying. Don't overthink it. The first thing that came to mind. Why haven't you done it, really? What's the story you've been telling yourself? Write it down. Not because writing is magical. Because hidden stories lose power the moment they're exposed. The world profits from distraction. Look around. Your attention has become one of the most valuable resources on earth. Every app wants it. Every advertisement wants it. Every headline competes for it. The longer you stay distracted, the less likely you are to ask dangerous questions. Questions like, what do I actually want? What kind of person am I becoming? Who benefits from me staying exactly as I am? Those questions don't generate clicks. They generate change. And change is uncomfortable. The mask of conformity. Imagine standing in a crowded elevator. Everyone faces forward. Nobody speaks. One person turns around and smiles. Instantly, everyone notices. Not because smiling is wrong. Because different feels dangerous. Humans learned long ago that belonging increased survival. That instinct still lives inside us. Only now, the threat isn't wild animals. It's social rejection. So people silence themselves, hide ideas, suppress ambition, shrink dreams, not because they lack talent, because they fear standing alone. The moment everything shifts, here's where the story changes. Freedom doesn't begin when fear disappears. It begins the moment you recognize fear's favorite disguise, normal. Most limiting beliefs don't feel limiting. They feel practical. Most self-imposed prisons don't look like prisons. They look like routines. That's why awareness is so rare. And why it's so powerful. Once you notice the pattern, you can't unsee it. Every excuse starts sounding familiar. Every hesitation reveals its script. Every delayed dream exposes the same invisible author. And that's where the real journey begins. Because recognizing the prison is not the same as escaping it. Not even close. In the next chapter, we're going to uncover why some people break free from these invisible chains, while others spend an entire lifetime defending them. And the answer has almost nothing to do with intelligence. Most prisons have walls. This one doesn't. You can travel anywhere, change jobs, move cities, even become successful, and still carry the same invisible cage with you. Because the strongest prisons aren't built around the body. They are built around identity. The story you keep telling yourself. Think about the last time you failed. Maybe it was an interview, a business idea, a relationship. Something didn't go the way you hoped. The event lasted minutes. But the story, that can last years. I always mess things up. I'm not leadership material. People like me never succeed. Here's the problem. Your brain isn't just listening to those words. It's learning from them. Every time you repeat a story about yourself, your mind quietly asks, if that's who we are, how should we behave? And before long, your actions begin matching the story. Not because the story is true, because it's familiar. A man with two gardens. Imagine two neighbors. Each has an empty garden. The first walks outside every morning. He pulls weeds, waters the soil, plants seeds. Some days nothing changes. Still he returns. The second neighbor stands at his fence. He says, "I'll start when I know exactly which plants will grow." Days become weeks. Weeks become years. Eventually, weeds take over. Then he sighs. "I knew I wasn't meant to be a gardener." Was he? Or did he simply mistake waiting for wisdom? Life works much the same way. Growth rarely rewards certainty. It rewards consistency. The comfort paradox: we chase comfort because it feels safe. But something strange happens. The more we avoid discomfort, the smaller our world becomes. We stop speaking up, stop trying, stop risking rejection. Eventually, we stop surprising ourselves. Comfort promises peace. Excess comfort quietly steals possibility. The Daily Vote. Here's a different way to think about identity. Imagine every action is a vote. You don't become confident because you say, "I'm confident." You become confident by casting small votes. Making the phone call. Showing up again. Keeping a promise to yourself. One vote changes very little. Thousands of votes create a new identity. This is why tiny actions matter so much. They aren't just changing your schedule. They're changing the evidence your mind uses to define who you are. The distraction loop. Now look around. Never in history has it been easier to avoid yourself. Bored, scroll, anxious. Watch another video, lonely. Refresh your feed. None of these are inherently bad. But if every uncomfortable emotion is immediately covered by distraction, you never learn what that emotion was trying to teach you. Sometimes boredom is pointing toward creativity. Sometimes frustration is pointing toward growth. Sometimes fear is pointing toward a life you've been postponing. The moment of courage. Picture a young woman standing outside a room where she's about to give her first presentation. Her hands shake. Her heart races. She considers leaving. No one would blame her. Instead, she takes one slow breath, opens the door, and walks in. The audience never knows how frightened she felt. Months later, people call her a natural speaker. They mistake confidence for the absence of fear. They don't see what really happened. She acted while fear was still present. That is courage, not fearlessness. Remember the question. Earlier, we asked why some people escape the invisible prison while others defend it. Here's part of the answer. The people who escape don't necessarily have fewer fears. They simply stop asking, "How do I avoid discomfort?" and start asking, "What kind of person do I become if I face this?" That single shift changes everything. Because the goal is no longer comfort. The goal becomes growth. The mirror. Take a moment. Imagine meeting yourself 10 years from now. Two versions. One continued waiting for the perfect moment. The other began with imperfect steps. They look almost identical until they start telling their stories. One speaks about plans. The other speaks about experiences. One collected reasons. The other collected lessons. The distance between them wasn't created in a single dramatic moment. It was created by ordinary decisions, repeated quietly, day after day. The turning point. Freedom doesn't arrive all at once. It begins in moments so small they almost seem insignificant. Closing the laptop and starting the project. Making the difficult call. Apologizing first. Applying before you feel ready. Saying yes to opportunity. before certainty appears. Those moments rarely feel heroic. But years later, they become the chapters that changed everything. And here's what most people never realize. Your future isn't waiting for one massive breakthrough. It's waiting for one honest decision, made today. In the final chapter, we'll explore the last illusion that keeps people trapped, and why the life you've been searching for may begin the moment you stop asking for permission. There comes a moment in every life when the excuses stop sounding convincing, not because they're louder, because you've heard them too many times. The promise of someday, the comfort of I'm not ready, the certainty that tomorrow will somehow be different. Then one question changes everything. What if tomorrow is simply today? Repeat it again. The invisible choice. Most people believe life changes through dramatic moments. A breakthrough, a lucky opportunity, a single life-changing decision. Sometimes it does, but more often, life bends quietly, one choice at a time. Choosing to wake up instead of snoozing. Choosing the difficult conversation instead of silence. Choosing to begin before you feel confident. None of these moments look extraordinary until years later. That's when you realize they became the turning points. The river. Imagine standing beside a river. You can't stop its current. You can't force it to flow faster. But you can decide whether to stand on the shore or build a boat. Time is like that river. It moves whether you're ready or not. The question isn't whether life will change. It will. The question is whether you'll be steering or drifting. The mirror we avoid there is one place many people spend their entire lives avoiding. Not a city, not a country, a mirror. Not because they dislike their reflection, because the reflection asks uncomfortable questions. Is this the life you wanted? What promise did you make to yourself that you've forgotten? What would happen if you stopped waiting for permission? Those questions don't exist to shame you. They exist to wake you up. The small courage that changes everything. People often imagine courage as something spectacular. Standing on a stage, climbing a mountain, changing the world. But the courage that changes lives is usually invisible. Opening the blank page, sending the application, admitting you were wrong, trying again after disappointment, keeping a promise when no one is watching. History rarely remembers those moments. Your future does. Call back. Remember the invisible prison we began with. It was never built from walls. It was built from unquestioned assumptions. Assumptions about who you are, what you're capable of, what you deserve. The remarkable thing about assumptions is that they can be replaced. Not overnight, but one honest action at a time. The future is watching. Imagine meeting yourself 20 years from now. Not the version shaped by luck, the version shaped by today's choices. Would they thank you for protecting them from discomfort, or for giving them the chance to become someone they never thought possible? That future isn't waiting somewhere far away. It's being created right now by the next decision you make. Perhaps the greatest freedom isn't living without fear. It's refusing to let fear make your decisions. Perhaps confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build. And perhaps the life you've been searching for hasn't been hidden from you at all. It's been waiting just beyond the stories you've been telling yourself. So when this video ends, don't ask whether you felt inspired. Ask a better question. What is one action I can take today that my future self will be grateful for? Because insight without action becomes entertainment. Action turns insight into transformation. And maybe that's the real journey. Not defeating an invisible enemy, but becoming the kind of person who no longer lets it decide the direction of your life. Every day, your choices tell a story about who you're becoming. Choose wisely. So when this video ends, don't ask whether you felt inspired. Don't ask whether you agreed. Ask yourself something far more uncomfortable. Who has been making the decisions in my life? Because every year you spend waiting, fear grows stronger. Not because it becomes more powerful, because it becomes more familiar. One day you'll wake up and realize your habits became your future. Your excuses became your identity. And the life you imagined became the life you almost lived. The invisible prison was never locked. The door was always open. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the story you've repeated so many times. You stopped realizing it was only a story. So today, question it, challenge it, walk through the open door. Because years from now, your future won't remember how motivated you felt after watching this video. It will remember what you did next. And maybe that's the greatest truth hidden inside Outwitting the Devil. The devil doesn't have to destroy your life. He only has to convince you to postpone living it until there isn't enough time left. Choose today. And after all of this, there's one final thought. Imagine your life as a book. Every decision you've ever made has written a page. Some pages are filled with courage, others with hesitation. Some chapters tell the story of who you truly were. Others tell the story of who fear convinced you to become. But here's what most people forget. You are reading this story while you're still writing it. The next chapter hasn't been printed. It hasn't been decided. It belongs to the choice you make after this moment. Years from now, you probably won't remember this video. You won't remember these words. But you'll remember the decision they inspired, or the opportunity they let slip away. Because life is rarely changed by inspiration alone. It's changed by a single decision, made when no one is watching. So close this video. Put down the phone. Sit with your thoughts for just a minute. Ask yourself one honest question. If fear wasn't making this decision, what would I do next? Then do that. Because the story of your life has never needed a perfect author. It only needed someone willing to write the next page. If this video made you question even one belief you've been carrying, then this is only the beginning. Every week on Dark Mind Pro, we explore the hidden psychology behind human behavior, fear, influence, success, and the invisible forces that shape our lives. Not to tell you what to think, but to help you think more deeply. So if you're ready to understand the mind instead of being controlled by it, subscribe to Dark Mind Pro, because the most powerful weapon you'll ever possess isn't money. It isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's awareness. And once you see the patterns, you'll never see the world the same way again. We'll see you in the next journey.